Carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is maximum number of maximum number মানে highest number of individuals of a given particular species or maximum population size that an ecosystem habitat can sustainably support over a given period without degrading the depletion the ecosystem or the resource base. It is determined by few key factors such as food availability, water, space, disease or parasite, competition, predator-prey interaction, etc. These key factors have the ability to limit or even reduce a population by lowering birth rate, increasing the death rate, or encouraging migration. For this reason, these are referred to as limiting factor. When there is no limiting factor, a population can grow exponentially. The population of any species, including human, in an area may increase in different pattern. It may increase exponentially, geometric progression from 1 to 4, 8, 16, sometimes referred to as Malthus law of population growth, or more realistically, it may increase according to Varhast law, representing a logistic curve. Number of individual or population size is represented in the vertical axis and time in horizontal axis, whereby maximum population K is determined by the carrying capacity of an area. Population growth curve showing exponential or J-shaped growth. Population growth curve showing logistic or sigmoid or S-shaped growth. The law of limiting factor and the law of tolerance. There are several laws of nature that shape the performance of organism in a specific or environment. However, there are two laws of nature that govern the specific response of organism to the physical environment, which are the law of limiting factor and the law of tolerance. The law of limiting factor. The law of limiting factor. The law states that a single factor is either too much or too little determine the growth rate of a species or presence or absence of its population in a particular place, even if all other occur factors are optimum level. This factor is called limiting factor. In biology, agricultural science, physiology, and ecology, a limiting factor is one that control a process such as organism growth or species population size and distribution. Limiting factor in terrestrial ecosystem may include the level of soil nutrient, amount of water, light and temperature. In aquatic ecosystem, major limiting factor include pH, the amount of dissolved oxygen in the water, and salinity. The availability of food, predation, pressure and availability of shelter, etc. are also the example of factor that could be limiting for a species population in a given area. The law of tolerance. The law states that the ability of an organism to survive in a particular habitat or the size of a population in a community determined by its availability to tolerate a range of physical, chemical, and biological factors present in area. There are three set points for tolerance range. The highest concentration of the individual of a population is found within the optimal range where species perform best. This is the range of environmental condition most conducive to growth and reproduction of the individual of the population. The highest range of condition that the organism tolerate is the maximum range, whereas the lowest range tolerable is known as minimum range. No individual of the species can found outside this maximum or minimum range. The upper or lower limit vary with season, geographical region, and state of growth of species. Liebig's law of minimum. Liebig's law of minimum, often simply called Liebig law or law of minimum, is a principle developed in agricultural science by Justus von Liebig in 1840. It states that growth is controlled not by the total of resources available but by the scarcest resources. This concept was originally applied to plant or crop growth, where it was found that increasing the amount of plentiful nutrient did not increase plant growth. Only by increasing the amount of limiting nutrient, the one scarcest in relation to need, was the growth of a plant or crop improved. To occur and thrive in a given situation, an organism must have essential material which are necessary for growth and reproduction. This requirement vary with the species and situation. Under the steady state condition, the essential material available in amount most closely approaching the critical minimum needed will tend to the limiting one. The critical minimum needed will tend to be limiting one. The law of minimum is first expressed by Justus Liebig in 1840. The law of minimum is less applicable under transient state condition when the amount and hence the effect so many constituent are rapidly changing. Liebig stated growth of a plant is dependent on the amount of foodstuff which is presented to it in minimum quantity has come to Liebig's law of minimum. Liebig's law has been extended to biological population. For example, the growth of a biological population may not be limited by total amount of resources available throughout the year, but by the minimum amount of resources available to the population at the time of year of greatest scarcity. This this is the growth of population of animals might depend on how much food is available in summer, but how much food is available in winter. Shelford law of tolerance. The presence and success of an organism depend upon the completeness of complex and condition. The presence of success of an organism depend upon the completeness of a complex of condition. The climatic, topographic and biological requirement of plants and animals. Absence or failure of an organism can be controlled by the qualitative and quantitative deficiency or excess with respect to any of several factors which may approach the limit of tolerance for their organism. The concept of limiting effect, the maximum as well as minimum, was incorporated into the law of tolerance by American zoologist Victor Ernest Shelford in 1913.